Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, a series of digital conversations that we do here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, inviting you, the entrepreneur, to participate in discussions with some of India's sharpest minds. We're doing this across different themes and topics, and here in the 10th edition of the show, we continue to bring you those topics that are most relevant to you, the entrepreneur. Tonight, we're talking Budget Plus. What has been the impact of the budget on India's small entrepreneurs, and what can you expect going forward as far as some specific industries are concerned? All of that being decoded on the show tonight. With that, let me dive right in and introduce our panelists who are joining us today. First up, we have Akshay Munjal, founder and CEO of Hero Wired. We have Ramni Khurana, co-founder of Lenscut. Ashraf Biran, founder and director of Wellness Forever. And last but definitely not the least, Harsh Jain, co-founder and CEO of Grow. First up, I just want to get a quick takeaway from each of you as far as what you made of the headlines of the budget announcement, maybe one or two of the key takeaways as far as you're concerned. Let me come to you first, Harsh.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show. So see, a lot of things, budget, very few. I think I found the budget very focused towards a couple of things. One thing was the infrastructure focus, the various points where government made it very clear that they want to invest heavily in the infrastructure, whether it's a digital infrastructure or the offline or the, transport infrastructure. The second part was on the digital focus. We've never seen the budget so much, so many times heard our finance minister talk about the digital, whether it's about the currency or it's about the assets or it's about the data being treated as a infrastructure. That was a good sign overall. And one more point I think was more about the startups and the ecosystem that government has been very vocal about developing, whether it's about the tax holidays or it's about the new setups having in the gift city, and even in the manufacturing sector, they came up with a lot of these things. So these are like few of the highlights for me, if I have to recall.
Akshay?
Thanks for having me on the show. I think it's a very progressive budget. The focus on infrastructure creation, on capital expenditure, I think it'll go a long way. The other big takeaway for me, at least, was the focus on education, where they spoke about digital universities. They spoke about encouraging world-class universities to set up campuses in India. They identified areas which are a priority. I think this is the first time in the budget they've gone to the level of saying here are the focus areas when respect to education. They spoke about drones, spoke about big data, whatnot. So in all, I think it was a very progressive budget and a very forward-looking budget.
Progressive and forward looking, but it definitely wasn't a populist budget. At least that's one of the key takeaways. But I want to hear from you, Ramneet, by way of your opening comments. What are one of the two things that you were very excited, hearing from the finance minister?
Yeah, so overall, I think first I would like to say that what really clicked with me is the sentiment with which Finance Minister opened up and said that startups have emerged as the drivers of growth for the economy. More than specifics, I think that it is this sentiment which translated really well across the full session of the budget. And in terms of specifics, key things that come out for me, first one was the tax holidays that Harsh referred to, which are being extended for manufacturing units and startups alike. And second is the reduction in surcharges and nudges towards making the process more easier for investment. So those were the two important ones which came out.
Okay, healthcare is something that we all were watching for, Ashraf. Unfortunately, not too much being announced. Mental health, of course, there was an announcement. We'll come back to that. But by way of opening comments, what would you like to tell us? What did you make of the budget announcement?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Sunanda and the ET team for having me here. I personally feel that the government push for the national digital health movement is something which is going to be very progressive and pivotal. Like it's trying to allocate a health ID to each and every citizen. I think that's going to be phenomenal. You can understand the reach and the power if each and every citizen is going to have a national ID, how important it can have an impact on the total health infrastructure in the country. And even a very thought-provoking, mental telehealth centers to be set up. Because as we know, people have really suffered mentally during the pandemic, and the government taking cognizance of that and trying to set up telehealth men center. I mean, a phenomenal move, very, very considerate, very, very powerful thinking. And to encompass everything into the digitization push, which the finance minister was very clear about, I think that's the way to go. And as we go forward, I really feel that India is progressing in the right direction with the right digital push, the NDHM opening up. I think lots to come through, lots to come through. Very positive in terms of how the health infrastructure is going to change. Thank you.
Okay, on that very optimistic note, I just want to read out some data. I'm sure all of you are aware of it, but just for the benefit of our audience, of the 61,000 plus startups which are recognized in India right now, about 14,000 have been created just in 2021-22. Despite the pandemic, despite all the challenges that we've been seeing, this is definitely good news. Open to all four of you, but perhaps I could come to you first, Ramneek, and then to Ashraf. What do you think is really driving this rapid pace of innovation and creation of these startups, and what more needs to be done perhaps on the part of the ecosystem? This is a big picture question, if you want to see more and more startups coming up.
Sure, absolutely. So, if you look at it, right, black swan events like these are a very good shock to the system and lead to a lot of circumstances where you see new things coming up. And I think that is what is driving this demand significantly. On the talent side, a lot of people are right now rethinking the way they are doing business and what are they working on day-to-day basis. And that is leading to a lot of people trying out these new things, which is fantastic for us because we do want a lot of people to try out and come up with fantastic ideas which could be scaled into world-class companies. On the other side, if you look at the demand side, because everything has moved digital, the shelf space has really become unlimited. So I think demand for both goods as well as services has grown tremendously, and it has really lowered down the barriers for a lot of people across the world. Similarly, on the services side, if I talk about it, companies like Freshworks, which have been working at it for a very, very long time, have really, really grown and come to their full. And if you look at it, they have been very easily be able to work out of India and compete with companies like Salesforce, because
Yeah.
the acceptance is much, much easier. You don't really expect a Salesforce guy to now come to your office and actually sell you the product. All of that is done digitally. So I think those are some of
Yeah.
the things which have really helped in making this shift, and I really feel it will continue. I don't think these are changes which will fall back again.
Okay, Ashraf.
Well, very much with Ramnik, I think with the what you call advancement of digitization and IT, the first thing I feel is there are no more boundaries. There are no people not being able to explore. The whole world, the whole universe is open to you. And in India, I'm very sure there is so much of talent, especially people in the IT industry. We have been recognized globally as, IT talent pool. And
Yeah.
given an opportunity here, I see there is a lot and lot to go forward looking into it as we go and identify the need and the gaps in the market where this technology can be brought in the forefront. So let's
Mhm.
be it that be a health moment or let it be like so many startup currently which are taking the needs of the people and turning unicorns. So I think
Yeah.
digitization push and where the IT is pushing itself, we can see many more unicorns coming up in our country very for sure. And there is so much of population, there's so much of diversity. I think that again opens up a lot and lot of potential for such growth.
I'm going to slip into a short break on that note. We're back in just a moment. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass. Harsh, since Ashraf was talking about digitization and unicorns, I want to come to you on this question. And my question is then, as we're seeing more and more people perhaps coming now and setting up businesses and services like yours, how are you working to ensure that on one hand you're able to take in this huge surge in demand, and on the other hand, giving the right quality of education as far as people who want to invest for the first time is concerned?
No, definitely. I think just connecting with the previous question, I think fintech is not fintech. If you say is an industry which is enabling, finance, money, investing, it enables
Yeah.
everything. Like when we talk about even the budget, anything that moves, that people it makes attractive for people to invest in, that has a potential in future, right? So obviously there was a black swan event and which triggered, but if you see 5 years before also there were tailwinds of mutual funds ahi hai, and then getting into the investing also in the last 2 years we saw super high peak. And the same time what we did observe was the consumption for the content. So the education part, people being curious of knowing, learning, and then doing things rather than just following the rat race or following the herd. Everybody's investing, we should also invest. It's not really happening like that. The people are really actually getting into learning how to do, and then making their decisions and making their choices of where they want to invest. So we're seeing a good trend. It's going to continue, obviously, because it's a huge country. And if you see the penetration of capital market in a retail, it's less than 10%. And you have, almost to 30 to 40 million people who have fixed deposits, who have money in the bank. And they just not started with their, even a 5-10% diversification of their capital into the market or a more equity driven market. So there is a lot more scope out there. Education enablement, regulators have become very focused towards the growth, towards the digitalization. Government has itself become, so many regulations have come from KYC to movement of the money to the authentication and authorization using UIDI and other means. So all these things have kind of enabled, build that platform with more need which are coming in. Like people have realized that they have a need to diversify, they have a need to put their money in these classes. So altogether, I think
Yeah.
it's a stage set for disruption in the space.
Sure. Let me take my first question at this point. For those of you who are just logging in, you're joining us here on IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, a series of digital conversations we're going to be doing over the course of the entire year on different topics and themes. Today, we're doing budget plus, dissecting some of the announcements from the finance minister. We're also looking forward as to what the rest of 2022 and the rest of this fiscal will look like. My first question then, and this is the opportunity for all of you who are logging in to ask your questions live to our panelists who are here with us today. My first question is from Deepak Jain at Start Growth Limited. He says, should I be making investments in this environment? I work with primary and junior class students. This question is clearly for Akshay. You want to set the ball rolling, Akshay, and really talk about investments in the edtech space in an environment like this?
Sure. I think there's been no better time than to make the investment this now.
Okay.
Just coming on to your follow on to your previous question to my fellow panelist, the rate of change. I think what's driving the entrepreneurial growth in the country is fundamentally two things. We've never seen in history the kind of rate of change we're seeing now, and two, the celebration of startups. So when you take these two things together, it's creating tremendous opportunity. Now, when you take a sector like edtech has got massive tailwinds after COVID. So even though before COVID, edtech
Yeah.
used to exist, we used to have all the technologies, courses were all there, but they've really come into the mainstream. And one of the good things of this budget, or even the NEP, they've recognized the role of edtech. Now, to answer the question, if you what the audience is asking, if you are
Yeah.
able to identify the courses you want to do, which have very clear outcomes, I think it's a great time because as the economy is recovering, we think there'll be tremendous opportunities next 6 months to 1 year. Even if you talk about opportunities in tech, today you talk to any company, the number one pain point is not able to hire enough tech talent. So
Yeah.
if you take across the spectrum, you do any programs in tech, I'm sure there are many opportunities available.
Sure. So now is the best time, according to Akshay, and I think our fellow panelists will agree that perhaps across all industries, this is the best time for you to be making investments. If not previously, we're going to also be taking a few poll questions here on the Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass. And our first poll, and you can see it on your screens for all of you who have registered for our masterclass, coming up on your screens. It's a simple yes or no. Do you think the budget was a populist one? That is the question which is coming to you. Please do respond to us. Send us yes or no as your response. So, on that note, while we're waiting for our poll final result to come in, let me quickly take another question. And this one is coming to us from Pushpa Goenka, CEO of Insurance Sati. How will digital currency work? Why did the government introduce this now? Open for everyone on this panel, but Harsh, do you want to take a first stab at this?
Yeah, sure. So, see, it's very difficult to say how it will pan out, digital currency, because
Yeah.
there has been, see, there's been a lot of debate happening outside with respect to the existing crypto assets, or whatever the ecosystem outside is, where people are participating one way or the other. And then the digital currency that RBI has been asked to, or maybe in consultation decided that they will come up with something. See, overall objective is there's a technology out there which is blockchain, which is a superior technology than the offline or than the existing ones. And government has recognized that yes, there's a technology which can be leveraged, and which can be leveraged not just for enabling certain asset classes, but also to enable our own economy and advancing it to the
Yeah.
next level. So it's in a way an endorsement to the fact that yes, we are pro tech, we are pro growth, and anything else, anything new comes in, we'll earn, and we'll try to bring it to you as a advantage. So broadly, that's that signal. How it will pan out, what share of the overall economy will shift to digital, how will the transaction happen? I think overall objective will be to continue being more secure when it comes to the money movements and transactions, and be more cost efficient in terms of the overall transaction. So, I mean, that is what my take is on this.
I have a little bit of different view, Harsh, on this. I was wondering that with UPI, government has done such a fantastic job of making, money transfers easy, making it very seamless. And I mean, the penetration that it has garnered is mind blowing in terms of compare if you compare it to any credit card or
Correct.
debit card in that front, right? So I am really a little bit confused on what do we want to do with the digital currency beyond that. Because while it is cool, it is a good way to support innovation and all that and signal that. I think that can be that is something that they'll be able to do. But beyond that, in terms of actual utility, right? I think government has done fantastic job with UPI, and if anything, blockchain will probably slow it down because it is not the most efficient way, right? I mean, typical databases are much faster than executing a trade or executing a transaction on a typical blockchain.
No, quite possible. I think again, I agree with you. It's not very clear how the applications of it will be more beneficial than existing ecosystem. But UPI being itself is a far more advanced technology. If you look at in the world, creating our own currency is not necessarily only just for the movement of the money. It may come up with more use cases that I mean, again, it's very speculative and it's very difficult to say, because the use cases that you see outside, it's very difficult that the same ones will be done by RBI's cryptocurrency also, or a digital currency also.
No, I was just thinking if the entire GST portal comes on blockchain, how it would help us, because we have so much problems when GST, payment doesn't come through from the other people, and then you end up actually paying those things for us, when we take that credit inputs. So I think if things like that can be bought on a blockchain, it would be really wonderful.
Yeah, I think traceability is one of the best use cases it can embrace, which is
Correct.
GST and making the
Yeah,
RTI much more easier. So that is one big use case which can be explored.
exactly.
Yeah. In terms of startups growing and 25% of the startups being coming in last year, I think that is fantastic. But what do you guys think about valuation? Where do you think we are
Yeah,
at?
If you look at
yeah.
valuations, you look at public markets also. We've had very frothy valuations, whether public markets and private markets. And especially in
Yeah.
private markets now, in the last 6 months, investors are also now chasing bottom line. I think the era of mad growth or just chasing top line at any expense is over now. And I think this was induced by this availability of unlimited free money, which was globally floating around, which came in and they drove valuations
Correct.
across the world to unreasonable figures. And
Correct.
if you, I was reading today after yesterday's crash of Facebook share, it's available at 17 times PE, forward PE.
Hmm.
But the Nifty trades much higher than that. So while that's happening on public market, even private market, I think are slowing down, are getting more reasonable. And
Hmm.
look at all the
Hmm.
listings of all the which tech companies which had listings in the last few months. They've Most of them have not been able to sustain.
Having said that, I think overall the good thing is that a lot of people are able to generate money to pursue their ideas, and at the end of it, whichever are the good ones, they
Absolutely.
will sustain and they'll make a dent. They will make a dent. So it is fantastic that we got this opportunity to do it at this time, and lot many people came out of it.
That's all we have on this episode. But if you have any feedback for us, our contact details are coming up on your screens. Also, part 2 is coming up, where we're going to continue discussing the impact and the announcements out of the budget and what it means for you, the entrepreneur. Here's a sneak peek.
One has to make sure that they don't get into the hype cycle. Don't set up a lot of their targets basis the milestones being achieved in terms of valuations being reached.
Digitization is playing a major role in how the future healthcare is going to evolve.
Just be very customer focused, build something that people want.
I think there's no better place to be than now and then in edtech.
Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, a series of digital conversations that we do here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, bringing themes that are most relevant to you and experts who are the biggest across their industry, all to empower you in your growth journey. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. Tonight we're talking Budget Plus. We've heard the announcement of the budget from the Finance Minister. What does it mean for the life of an entrepreneur like yourself? And what is the rest of 2022 and the fiscal looking like? All of that being decoded on the show tonight. This masterclass was moderated by my colleague Sumit Lakhutia. Listen in.
For micro and small enterprises and expand employment.
A lot of people say that, hey, I have an idea, but I don't have the money to back it. And I might not even have the time or the enthusiasm to follow up, but I have the idea. I mean, somebody will always say they had the idea for a lens card or for an Uber or for a Zomato. So in short, is an idea enough?
See, idea is, each one of us, been on our entrepreneurial journey can say that idea is definitely important, but then execution is what it takes, all right. And it's a lot of effort, and it's not a eureka for a moment, right? For a day. It's like multiple times those gut feels and those tough decisions and those failures and those learnings from it. So, idea is good to start with, but if you really want to take it forward, then start working on it.
I fully agree with him. Idea is just the onset or a start of a conversation or a business point.
Yeah.
What it takes is consistency, hard work, and most of the time in life you're challenged, am I doing the right thing? That is where real entrepreneurship comes in. It is not how many times you fall down, it is how many times you get up. That is actually what makes that journey so interesting.
We have a question from Neerav Shah, and he asks, "What is the meaning of a populist budget? Are schemes for corporates a populist one as they come under obligation?"
In my view, a populist budget is where you are taking decisions keeping elections in mind. In a very simple, if I were to just repeat that, you are taking decisions keeping elections at the forefront. And I think this government in this budget has totally strayed away from that. While the populists, there were demands to lower taxes, increase exemptions, whatnot, but they've strayed away from any of those measures, while they focused more on capital and infrastructure creation.
If you look at the budget, right, there's no drastic rate cuts or anything of that sort. It is very much focused on growing the infrastructure. It is trying to put across the right nudges across the infrastructure to make sure that the growth is there, not just for this year, but the years to come. And I agree, it is not a populist budget. It is a budget which is more wholesome in nature.
Yeah, totally
Right.
agree. I mean, yeah, that's the push and the way government is going after digitization, the way, government is trying to bring more transparency into all transactions and all. I think, yes, definitely they are pushing that. So much, much on that side.
Right, right. Next up, we have another interesting question from Manoj Patel, and Manoj says, he asks, "How is digitization impacting startups' funding?"
Yeah, I think one of the it goes in the direction like the budget overall thought process is to encourage startups, encourage new companies coming in, creating jobs, creating more value overall in the system. I think one of the things I can remember is the capital gain. I think surcharge also they reduced from I mean they put a cap of 15%. Earlier it was 37% for a larger I think above 5 crore. So those are things where investors will be it'll be easier for you to raise funds and investors. It's an investor friendly scheme. Even from a tax holiday point of view, I think the first 3 years of the journey for a startup is a tax holiday. They've increased it to another year. Even in manufacturing sector, they did those subsidies. I think EV sector also there are a lot of more subsidies, which are again picking up space. So overall, like there are a lot of benefits, and I think it's just not just in this budget. I think if you overall look the available subsidies and the funding right from the government associations to the state, every state has its own, like Rajasthan, Karnataka for sure. I know in Gujarat also there. Each state has their own funds where they give you a seed fund, they give you infrastructure to set up and to start your your idea to at least a POC state that we can do, and then go out and seek more investments or more business on your own. So there have been a lot of encouragement push. I think continues to be the theme for government.
Akshay, I just wanted your thoughts on this point. Government initiatives like digital education, how will they help the edtech space?
I think you've got to take in tandem with what government had announced about 2 weeks ago. So if you look at about 2 weeks ago, UGC and AICT had cracked down on edtech players giving degrees. So while that happened 2 weeks ago, now in this budget, they've really clarified who can give what can one do. And even in this budget, or even in NEP, which is the new education policy, the government has clearly recognized the role of edtech. This time, they've also announced a channel, one channel which is continuously disseminating knowledge. So I think this government is very clear and very focused that to increase our gross enrollment ratio, we need to work in tandem with edtech. Earlier, it was always the traditional higher education or K 12, where you require tremendous capital expenditure to create all the infrastructure. And but that had its own challenges. Now with edtech and with the penetration of mobile phones, broadband internet, whatnot, it becomes so much easier. You are able to reach the remotest corners of the country. And people earlier, I used to go, if somebody went to college, they did their higher education, that was it. After that, your relationship with education was over. But now with reskilling, upskilling, it's become a more continuous relationship. And I think that's another area. If you look at in the budget this time, they've announced certain areas. They spoke about drones, they spoke about big data, they spoke about engineering, mathematics, AI, ML, whatnot. So they've clearly laid down a roadmap that here are the programs we want to focus on.
Right. Thanks for that, Akshay. Ramni, this question is for you. It's from Gaurav Divani, who asks if the budget has helped in delivering on crucial reforms around foreign direct listing, taxation, and ESOPs.
So I think it didn't nothing specific in those direction that I could think of. There's been a capping of 15% on surcharge for people holding equity in the companies for a longer period of time, but nothing specific to a wider range of instruments that you're talking about.
Ashraf, let's come to you. And I want to talk to you about wellness. Now, in the last 2 years, the pandemic has changed the game for wellness. I know this is a little away from the budget, but it's an important point that I wanted to talk to you. Like I said, during the pandemic, things have changed drastically for wellness. And when we talk about working, it's no longer about working from home or working from office. It's going to be hybrid. Do you see that coming up in healthcare as well? Will it be hybrid healthcare for the way ahead?
Yes, I think thank you for asking that question. During pandemic, we all realized one thing, and that is how important health is. Earlier, in urban cities and tier one, tier two cities, most of the time we are like, money rich and time poor. We don't focus ourselves on our health and positive outlook mindset. But during pandemic, we realized one thing very, very clearly, that health is of prime importance. And wellness for that matter, wellness in terms of physical health, mental health, general well-being. I think the entire perspective of people towards health has gone a 360-degree change. Now people really value, exercising more, eating right, thinking right. And I think, yes, going forward, as we all currently know, that wellness in near 2 or 3 years in the future is going to be a $5 trillion industry. It's one of the fastest growing industry. And I feel a huge opportunity for people in this space. And one thing is for sure, the hybrid culture is here to stay.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's time to take the last question for today's show. This question comes from Jed. He says that while we've already made substantial growth with digital payments and digital financial transactions, what more can digital currency enable? And I think that's an answer everyone would want to know, considering it's been a big announcement in the budget.
So just a little while ago, we were discussing the same thing, and I think the general discussion from the panel, and including myself, is it's unclear, Frank's point of time, what additional innovations or efficiencies digital currency can bring in to the system. There's definitely a technology out there which government is now endorsed and said, okay, this technology is a advanced technology. There's a lot of applications that can be built. There's a lot of capabilities we can create if we latch upon this, and then we create a digital currency of our own. How this will improve further the transactions, the security, the cost of moving funds, the goal of government of bringing all the or removing the inefficiencies or the black money or the outside system circulation on the system. I think those things are yet to be seen, and I'm sure the regulators and the authorities, they're working on how to leverage this, and we'll hear more about these things in future.
Let's take a quick break. Back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're thus here on Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass.
Akshay, back to EdTech. Now, you spoke about how it will be helpful and a game changer for students who want to reskill and upskill. But let's look at the other side. What about teachers? How can this help in teacher training?
I think not just edtech. You look at traditional education also. All of them had to transition overnight for online education. So this really wasn't a choice available to anybody. As a result, what's happened because of the pandemic, everybody moved online, and the faculty who were not comfortable or were reluctant to try it earlier had no choice but to come online. But now look at the benefits of edtech or benefits of online education. Not just online teaching, there are lots of technologies like adaptive testing, personalized learning, individual student tracking. All of these technologies existed even before the pandemic. But as a result of the pandemic, all of these have come to the forefront. So earlier, when you had a class in a school or a college or a university, 60 students in a class, very difficult for a faculty member to know what each one is doing, how much he or she has learned, what are the areas they grasped, or what are the areas they've not understood. Now with personalized adaptive learning, you get a very clear picture what each learner is at. And not just to answer your question, there's a lot of work happening also on making it smooth, making it easier for the faculty or teachers to teach online. It's a different medium. First, everybody struggled, everybody thought, you know what, I'm used to having a whiteboard or a green board next and then walking the class. But with the kind of technologies I spoke about, and when people started using these, suddenly they realized they could do a lot more than what they had earlier anticipated.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, Ramnik, my next question is for you. You know, our overarching theme of season 10 of Leaders of Tomorrow is empowering entrepreneurs for the new age. So, how can they be empowered for the way ahead? What would be your advice to those that are listening into us?
So, a couple of things. Firstly, as you mentioned, right, there are a lot of new technologies which are out there, AI, ML, even augmented reality. A lot of these technologies are now coming at play and are actually being implemented as we speak. So the first thing that a person has to do in technology is actually try them out, actually get their hands dirty, actually work with them so that they understand the ins and outs of it and are able to direct them to the right use cases. So that is the very first thing that the person who's interested in this needs to do. Secondly, for a tech entrepreneur who has already raised money, like we had spoken about rich valuations which are going on right now, one has to make sure that they don't get into the hype cycle. Don't set up a lot of their targets basis the milestones being achieved in terms of valuations being reached, because that is a path which is not going to lead to long-term value creation for anyone.
Thanks for that, Ramni. Ashraf, same question to you. And maybe if you could specifically talk about your sector. I mean, it is one of the sectors that is very much in the highlight now.
The budget recently, the government has been very, very, progressively talking about the national digital health movement. Now, just imagine when each and every citizen has a national ID. It can really, transform the entire healthcare system, right from medical records, right from treatments people are having, access to a common insurance, gain policy benefits across, even when a prescription is being prescribed. I'm very sure as going forward, they'll be all be 100% digitized. So a trail of prescriptions across, and even now consider if there is a medicine to be recalled because of some faulty batch or something. Since the trail is there, it's very, very easy for the entire process to be, followed and recalled back. So I think digitization is playing a major, major role in how the future healthcare is going to evolve. And with the government taking such aggressive steps there, even tele mental health setups coming up, I think yes, in the future the digitization journey, the IT journey is going to be really, really helpful in the healthcare sector.
Thank you for that, Ashraf. Harsh, let's talk about the fintech space. Your thoughts for entrepreneurs who are watching us. How do you envision that they can empower themselves for the way ahead? Because let's be honest, your sector is not one that changes every year, every month. It almost seems to be changing every minute.
Yeah, see, anything which is leveraging tech and dealing with money is kind of fintech, and there's like very very wide space of things that people can do. But I think firstly, just be very customer focused. Build something that people want, not what you have a baggage or you have a you have seen from the industry. So think consumer first, and something that played well for us. Not coming from the finance industry, I think we could see the pain and we worked on the pain, and solving it will be a different way, but think of it consumer first and solve their problem. Second is, I think, be responsible, because here you're dealing with people's money, and that entrusting you. So if you want to go long way, I think you have to be very responsible, right from the commitments that you make to the product that you put out there, the kind of risk, the kind of authorizations And third thing, one thing is very specific to fintech for the audience is like a lot of people think like fintech, is a heavily regulated. Definitely, it is heavily regulated, but think of regulators as your friends and not your, enemies. Because see, their intent is to protect consumer from the wrongdoings, wrong intentions, and your being a responsible player in the industry, your intention should also be the same. So eventually, if you understand the intent and innovate over and above that, I think you'll go a long way versus being frustrated or trying to find some loopholes, because that's a very shortcut and that's not really long term. So think of these things if you're thinking anything in fintech.
Akshay, coming to you, same question in your sector, in your space. Just your thoughts, your advice to entrepreneurs. How can they empower themselves for the way ahead?
I think EdTech is going through a very interesting phase. On the last year, I was reading a figure that there are anywhere upwards of 9,000 EdTech companies in India alone. And what we anticipate, there will be a wave of consolidation happening. It's only a matter of 6 months to a year or 2 years max when consolidation comes in. But that being said, I think there is still tremendous opportunity in EdTech. A country like India has 1,000 plus universities and upwards of 50,000 colleges. So I think a country like India, where the focus on education is huge, and people have an inherent belief that education is my ticket to a better life, I think there's no better place to be than now and then in edtech.
Thank you for that, Akshay. But before we wind up, Ashraf, one last question. The finance minister made an important announcement around mental health. How do you think that announcement can be given more teeth, and so that, after all, it's one of the other important things that came out in the budget. So your thoughts on this before we wind up?
Yeah, I think on the mental health, awareness can be made better by a lot of like communication coming across, government taking more aggressive stance in making it more and more popular. Because wherever we come to a point where somebody talks about mental health or mental illness, there's a lot of stigma there. People somewhat just step backwards on that. People feel, no, we are all Superman, there is nothing wrong with us. But I think if we can drive that point aggressively and make it aware to people, yes, sometimes there is an imbalance, sometimes mentally you are not well, be prepared for that and have an openness to accept that. I think once we accept that and we move forward, it's going to be a beautiful journey. And mental health is all about positive thinking. It's about eating right, exercising right. And we need to make it a common knowledge. There is nothing wrong. Sometimes if you are not feeling up to it, yes, people do have mental health challenges. Be open about it. If the government can make it more and more popular, driving those sort of programs across, I think it will be wonderfully helpful, because people really feel very closeted when it comes to mental health and try to hide it, from other people. And that can be very dangerous. So I think the more open we are to this sort of program, the more popularly we can push this across, would be a wonderful opportunity to take it across.
That's all we could pack into this masterclass. But to know what we're discussing next, to know who some of our speakers are, head on over to our website. All our details are there. Also, that number you see on your screens, that's how you can reach us to send us your feedback. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.